Ladies and gentlemen, to all the boys and girls of all ages, may you be young and bold or starting to get old. I'd like to greet everyone a wonderful day. I hope you guys are doing fine, especially with the COVID virus just around the corner. A friendly reminder to everyone, let us avoid spreading the virus even more, and to help humanity as a whole, let us all just stay home, sit back, relax, and listen to another refreshing and enlightening episode of Podcast 101. Today we are going to talk about something that is close to our hearts, not only in the past, but even until now. A musical that has touched and given us a roller coaster of emotions due to the bizarre, deep, and dark theme that is showcased and portrayed, especially when we compare it to other pieces of its kind. Yes, you got that right. We are talking about Hunchback of Notre Dame. Most famous and known as a film made by Disney in 1996, Hunchback of Notre Dame didn't really make the impression to the public Disney wanted it to have. This may have been because of the content of the film itself, a dark, antagonizing, and a very deep plot that only a few would really appreciate. However, it is reasonable when we try to look at it on its context. This is just one topic that we're going to ponder upon today, and hope you stay with us up until the end. Before going any further, let us begin this podcast by introducing everyone that's going to be talking today. Of course, myself. Hi, my name is Mark. I am going to be your host, and we have four other friends.
Hey everyone, just in case you all don't know, my name is Gabe, and I'm Mark's friend who happens to be quite a history nerd myself.
Good day, I'm Dylan Occena. I will be one of your co-hosts for this podcast.
Hello, Dylan.
Hi, I'm Angel. I really like musicals, especially Hunchback, and that's why I'm here.
And hi, I'm Angelika, and I'm one of Mark's friends.
Yo, hello, my friends, and now we're gonna begin. Of course, we're gonna start with some, background information, just so we know what we're doing and what we're talking about. So, care to take the mic out for some history and background information of the Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Yep. Thanks Mark, I care to take the mic too. Just so you know, The Huncback of Notre Dame was a novel written by Victor Hugo. It has centered to Victor Hugo. He's the same guy that wrote the famous other work called Les Miserables.
Yeah.
This was written by Hugo way back in 1831. So, if you think about it, if you do your math right, that's exactly 189 years ago. In 11 years, it'll be 2 centuries old. And about, wow, it's such a long time. Like, that's so long. It even makes it really easy, if you think about it. And due to its age, it has been interpreted many times over into many forms. When I was thinking about where is it, how many times it's been interpreted, I'm even surprised to find it. Even a video game has been made based out of it.
Wow.
You narrow it down to the specific categories such as film. You realize that there's films out of all types, like a silent film for those who like to appreciate the art of silent films, like way back in 1923, exactly 97 years ago. 23 years after that, in 1956, a movie was made in its native French called The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And 40 years after the French movie, the animated movie, which was made by Disney, the one that most of us probably here are most familiar with, was shown in theaters worldwide. Just so you know, all these, due to time and due to probably the audience target, these various windows have led to the story of the Hunchback of Notre Dame to be introduced to many audiences, and probably I don't think even Mr. Hugo himself would have imagined, such as the video gaming audience, the theater fan audience, even the animated cartoon fan.
Yeah.
That is why, even looking back, we have to know that due to this time and due to how many interpretations it is not no one adaptation is the same from the other. Hence, this is why these adaptations have changed so many features of the story that you would agree, without making it so far from the original, at the same time, it stays true to the actual essence of the story. Should you take it from here, Mike?
Okay, thank you, Gab. It's actually amazing to think about how this piece have been in so many different forms and versions. Yeah, just like what you talk about, like it has been in a film, it has even been in a video game. And of course, before we talk about it more, just a simple question to everyone in here. With all these adaptations and different versions of these pieces, which among, like, we have the Disney, we have the novel, we have the musical, we have the video game, which of this is your favorite and why? Of course, let me start. Of course, I'd like to say that my favorite is the film one, because I love Disney films, I love movies, I love watching cartoons as well. That's why I love Hunchback of Notre Dame in the Disney form. How about you guys?
I agree with Mark. Because the Disney film is something I grew up with, so it has some sentimental value for me compared to the other versions. So
Yeah.
it's the one I'm most familiar with, so I like it the most because of my personal bias.
Personally, I agree to a certain extent. Like, to the sense, I disagree in the sense that, yeah, I love the Disney movies. It's the one that, obviously, people in our generation, almost like, because we were exposed to people. Like, for me, in a sense, I love it. I'm not saying I don't like it, but, like, for me, if you really want to understand the essence of what Mr. Hugo was trying to say, like, I feel like it's impossible to not also immerse yourself into the musical so that we can have a clear view of what Mr. Hugo was wanted to write in his work.
How about you guys?
Well, well, I really like the musical, and I read the book a lot of times.
Yeah.
But really, the movie is iconic. So I have to go with the movie.
Okay.
For me, it's the same. It's the movie because it's shortened in an hour and it is an animated, so it's more enjoyable because I'm not fond of reading books. So
Same,
reading
same.
it would be very, very long. So
True.
watching it in a film, animated film, would make me like more engaging for me. So that's why I like the film more.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also hate reading books, to be honest. So
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
and that's
I don't have the
why
attention span.
that's why all the reading should be in films.
I don't have the
Yeah.
attention span.
The movies are better than books.
That is accounting movies na rin.
Well, so yeah, let's move on.
Yeah.
Before we dig deeper into like symbolism and those kind of things, of course, let us freshen our memories by knowing the plot and the summary of the film. Laika, can you tell us the story of Hunchback of Notre Dame?
So this plot is from the movie, which was
Yeah.
mentioned by Gabe. It was an animated musical film produced by Walt Disney Feature Animation in 1996. So the plot centers on Esmeralda, the gypsy dancer, Frollo, a powerful and ruthless minister of justice who lusts after her and plans to commit genocide by killing all the gypsies that live in Paris. So Quasimodo is the protagonist, and Notre Dame's kind-hearted and deformed bell ringer who adores Esmeralda and struggles to gain acceptance into the society, as well as save the gypsies who live in Paris from Frollo who plans to kill them all, and Phoebus, a chivalrous but reverent military captain who holds affection for Esmeralda. So in the movie, Quasimodo was raised by Frollo, the Minister of Justice, to atone his sin of murdering Quasimodo's mother, a gypsy, from thinking that she was carrying stolen goods. So Quasimodo grew as a kind yet isolated young man, having three gargoyles as his only company. So he attended the festivals of fools and was even crowned as the King of Fools despite Frollo's warning that about the people's judgment towards his looks. Immediately he got humiliated after Frollo's dogs started a riot, but Frollo refused to help him, and he was saved by Esmeralda, who was then able to escape from being arrested through illusion, which Frollo refers to as witchcraft. So Esmeralda followed Quasimodo inside the cathedral and was followed by Phoebus, who refuses to arrest her by saying that it was their sanctuary. So Frollo leaves, but he warns her that she will be captured once she leaves inside the church. So Esmeralda then befriended Quasimodo, and as a gratitude for helping him before, he helped her escape Notre Dame. She gave her a map of Gypsy's hideout, which is the Court of Miracles, in case he wanted to leave the Notre Dame again. So Frollo soon develops lustful feelings for Esmeralda, and upon realizing them, he begs the Virgin Mary to save him from the spell to avoid internal damnation. He soon learns about the escape of Esmeralda and instigates a citywide manhunt for her, which involves burning down of countless houses in his path. So Phoebus disobeyed Frollo's order to burn down one of the house which had the family inside. So because of this, Frollo ordered him to be executed, and he was struck by an arrow and fell into the sea river, but he was rescued by Esmeralda. So Frollo also discovered that Quasimodo helped Esmeralda escape. So what he did is he lied about the Court of Miracles. He said that he knows about the gypsies' hideout and intends to attack them with 1,000 men. So using the map Esmeralda gave him, Quasimodo and Phoebus finds the court and warn the gypsies. But they don't know that Frollo followed them and captured all the gypsies.
Yeah.
So Phoebus released the gypsy, and the Paris citizens rallies against Frollo and his men, who tried to break into the cathedral. And then Quasimodo and the gargoyles pour molten lead into the streets to ensure that no one's gonna enter, but Frollo successfully manages to get inside. So he pursues Quasimodo and Esmeralda to the balcony, where he and Quasimodo fight and both fall over the edge. Frollo falls to his death, but Quasimodo was able to save by Phoebus in the lower floor, and then afterward, Quasimodo comes to accept that Phoebus and Esmeralda are in love, and he gives them blessing. So the two encourages him to leave the cathedral into the house, into the outside world where he was hailed as a hero and he was accepted into the society.
Wow, that last part was actually so sad.
Mhm.
He just accepted his, that Phoebus and Esmeralda was in love, and it's actually amazing how the writers wrote this, because like the development of the characters as well as the scenes, parang, it's really a roller coaster of emotions, because in the beginning it's like peaceful pa, tapos parang you're gonna feel pity, and then in the end you're like, this guy is a hero now. What? Like, it's amazing how they wrote this. So like I mentioned, she emphasized that this was the plot in the movie. So we should actually talk about how the movie is different from the original version, which is the novel written by Victor Hugo, and the other adaptations as well. So yeah, let's move on to that. Dylan, can you talk about
That's right, Mark. So, in all versions of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Quasimodo was a hunchback who lives in Notre Dame and works as a cathedral's bellringer. In the book, he was abandoned by his parents as a baby for being ugly and was put up for adoption. But Claude Frollo took him in out of the kindness of his heart. Claude Frollo eventually became the Archdeacon of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
In the book, he was deaf and struggled to communicate with people, except Frollo, who taught him a sign language and allowed Quasimodo to communicate with him well. He doesn't want to leave the tower because he felt safe there, because the people on the outside, they feared him, they hated him because of his deformed appearance.
True.
In the novel, Quasimodo was beaten for attempting to kidnap Esmeralda. This didn't happen in the Disney version.
Oh wow.
Wow.
So, despite his hideous looks, Quasimodo was loyal to Frollo, since Quasimodo views him as a master and adoptive father. So, eventually, Quasimodo will come into conflict with Claude Frollo, because he will be torn between Esmeralda, the woman he loves, and a person he considers to be his father. And in the book, he still retains his kind nature, as shown when he attempts to rescue Esmeralda from being executed. However, this version of Quasimodo was more violent compared to his Disney counterpart, as seen when he pushed Claude Frollo off a balcony after he was watching Esmeralda get executed.
Wait.
Another difference. Wait, you go on, Pete.
So my question is, since Claude Frollo isn't in the Disney version, he's not a deacon, right? He's not even in the church. He's not even.
Yeah, he's a Minister of Justice of France, so a judge of sorts. Oh yeah, in
Why
the
would-
movie version. Oh wait, continue, Pete.
But why would he be loyal to the Notre Dame? Yes. Why would Quasimodo be loyal to the Notre Dame? Because in the
Because
book version, despite the fact that because like in the book we know that he had like his adoptive mother as like a deacon
Yeah.
of the church. But in the movie he's not there, right? So I just get to the loyalty part.
That's why Quasimodo wasn't as loyal in the movie. He easily betrayed Frollo in the movie as shown.
And also,
Yeah.
Now that makes
also in
sense.
the movie, the reason why he's raised in Notre Dame is because Frollo agreed to take him in, but only if he would be raised in Notre Dame by the Archdeacon. Because he didn't want to
Yeah.
have Quasimodo in his house.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's also atonement for his sins of murdering the gypsy woman who was the mother of Quasimodo. Oh yeah, in the movie he was less pitiful in the sense that he was capable of talking with other people and he wasn't deaf. He was also partially blind in the novel version in one eye because of a wart. Yeah, in the movie he was also forced to stay in the bell tower by Claude Frollo. Pero in the book he chose to stay in the bell tower since it was his sanctuary. And the musical, it's like a combination of the book and the movie in a sense. Like, he inherited most of the characteristics of the Disney movie, but in the end, he still ended up killing Frollo, like the novel version of
Yeah.
Hunchback, by throwing off a building, and Esmeralda ended up dead.
Oh.
So for Esmeralda, in all three versions, she was a beautiful gypsy woman who performed outside in a square outside Notre Dame. In the novel, she was raised and grew up to be a gypsy. However, she was originally the daughter of Sister Noodle, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, a woman who harbors hatred for gypsies because she believes that her daughter was killed by gypsies, when in fact Esmeralda was actually raised by the gypsies as one of their own.
Oh.
And in the novel, Quasimodo tries to kidnap Esmeralda, but we can see her kind-hearted nature when she forgave him and even gave him a bottle of water after the crowd beat him.
Yeah.
She also later tries to save a stranger named Pierre Vingor. by agreeing to marry him because he wandered in the court of miracles, and trespassers, such as non-gypsies, are executed there. In the novel, she is often compared to birds and flying insects. I believe that this is because flying is a symbol of freedom. So this can be interpreted as Esmeralda's desire to be free
Oh.
from the social stigma surrounding her gypsy background. Because she simply likes performing. Yeah, in the novel, she was innocent and naive. Pero in the Disney version, she was portrayed as someone outspoken, as shown when she saved Quasimodo from being bullied by the crown. In the novel, this didn't happen. Instead, that role went to Frollo. She also fell in love with Phoebus, who was much different in the Disney version. Since this version of Phoebus was a womanizer, he simply pretended to love her.
Oh.
And it ended up with her being rejected by Phoebus because Phoebus is a wealthy fiancé. And this version of Esmeralda has a belief that if she remains kind and virtuous, she will be protected from evil. But this didn't come true, as she was falsely accused and executed for witchcraft by Frollo.
So,
Yeah, continue, Mark.
okay.
So like in the novel, Phoebus, Esmeralda is like Phoebus is like side chick.
Kind of,
Yeah, that's basically
but not
it.
really.
Like he's cheating on his rich fiancé with.
They never got physically intimate.
Like he wanted to get
Yeah.
married with her, but it didn't really happen.
She refused because she wants to maintain her virtue until marriage.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
It's actually
the
different
musical-
than Disney, right?
yeah.
Yes,
And for the musical version, it's basically a combination of both, in a sense, because the musical portrays her as someone outspoken, like the Disney version, and confident, like when she dances and stuff.
Yeah.
But in the end, she also died, like the novel version, in the same way. So I consider it to be a fusion of both. For Claude Frollo, he was the archdeacon of Notre Dame and adoptive father of Quasimodo in the novel. He adopted Quasimodo out of the kindness of his heart. This was different from the Disney version where he was the minister of justice and he didn't adopt Quasimodo out of the kindness of his heart. It was forced on him by the archdeacon because he killed Quasimodo's mother. In the novel, he had a younger brother, adopted brother, named Jihan Frollo. Jihan didn't exist in the Disney version. So the Disney version can be considered to be more cruel. Yeah, and in the novel, he was considered to be a scholar of sorts. But when he grew older, he became cruel, obsessive, and strange. But he started out as being a kind-hearted priest, and he ended up losing faith in the Catholic religion and starting practicing alchemy. And however, he will become a fanatical once he falls in love with Esmeralda, even praying to the Virgin Mary that to save him from her, because she believes that Esmeralda bewitched him, and he either has to seduce or kill her.
So like, in a sense, he descended to man. So like, over the story, the whole story is descent to madness.
What? What's your question, please? I can't hear you that well. Sorry.
So like, the beginning of the Huncback is Lord Frollo's descent to madness.
Yeah, and Caltro was actually a good person at the beginning of Hunchback of Notre Dame, and we watched him deteriorate into a mad
Yeah.
fanatical priest.
That's sad.
Pero in the Disney version, he started out as a madman, so we don't see him deteriorate from being a kind-hearted priest to being a cruel and fanatical priest.
Like,
Also,
at the beginning,
the
it was
Disney
already bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was stated
Yeah.
already.
It's more straightforward. He's just evil.
Yeah, in the Disney version,
Yeah.
it was also it was mentioned now, what do you call that? He has an extreme prejudice against gypsies, but in the novel, he didn't have this prejudice. It wasn't as extreme. Like, he did dislike them, because like other people, but he didn't want to kill them or commit gypsy genocide. Like the movie.
Yeah, it was only
Yeah.
just Esmeralda, right? Because she
Yeah.
let it go.
So, how necessarily is this like significant to like how the plot was arranged in the Disney movie? Because you were saying right in the novel one, he doesn't necessarily hate the gypsies.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's a big change because it's like he's a different character entirely. Because the main aspect of the Disney version of Claude Frollo is that he hates gypsies and he wants to kill them all.
oh,
But in the book version, we see that he's a kind-hearted priest who regressed into a fanatical
Yeah.
Aparato Archdeacon.
And it actually makes sense because if you think about it,
Yeah,
yeah, Disney films are like an hour and a half to like 2 hours.
yeah.
So maybe this was a factor na it like shortened the novel version and like because they no longer need to move away from the original characteristics of the character and just he hates
Yeah.
gypsies right away from the very beginning. Yeah, they don't no longer
Oh,
need
yeah.
to explain anything
I
about
think
But
that.
the musical actually,
for kids.
Yeah.
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 Like,
Oh, yeah.
kids are going to understand, like, why is this priest suddenly bad now?
yeah,
You know, they made it less confusing for kids in the movie.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
that's
They made it
It's black and
simple.
white.
they made it simple.
yeah.
Friendly.
So for the musical version of Klaus Frollo, it's a combination again of both. Like he hates gypsies, but this stems from a reason. Like his brother Jihan Frollo died after he gave birth to what do you call that, to Quasimodo, but he adopted Quasimodo in. He took Quasimodo in out of love for his brother, and he blames gypsies for his brother dying at the beginning of the film. But aside from that difference, it's relatively the same as the Disney version.
Okay.
In a sense, that Claude Frollo is Esmeralda's uncle.
No, he's Quasimodo.
No, he's the what do you call it? The uncle of Quasimodo, and the Archdeacon of Notre Dame in the musical.
Yeah.
So for Pierre Gringor, this character only appears in the novel. He is a writer and a playwright. He was supposed to make a play to entertain the princess, the Flemish princess who arrived in Paris during the Feast of Fools, but the crowd didn't like it that much, so he believes that the crowd is too stupid to understand his art. Later on in the novel, sorry, he will end up marrying Esmeralda because he wandered into the Court of Miracles and was supposed to be executed. But Esmeralda, out of the kindness of her heart, tries to save Gringor by agreeing to marry him. Though Gringor is like a good artist, he was still attracted to Esmeralda to be beautiful. However, he still prefers Esmeralda's goat, Dijali, as shown in the ending when he had a choice to either save Esmeralda or Dijali. He chose to save Dijali, which shows that he's not really a good person.
Okay.
Because Esmeralda saved him before, but he chose to save Dijali because he can make money out of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's sad.
Yeah, in the novel and musical, he didn't exist. He kind of merged with Phoebus in a way, because Phoebus went to the Court of Miracles in the Disney version. Okay, for Phoebus. So in the novel, he was a villain. He was basically a horrible person. He was vain, untrustworthy, a womanizer. He didn't really like Esmeralda. He just wanted to seduce her, and use her. Yeah, and at the ending of the novel, he simply watched Esmeralda get executed without doing anything. It's really different from the Disney version, which has a drastic sense of justice. And in the Disney version, he chose to defy Frollo. But this version of Phoebus was fine with killing innocent people. And for the musical version, it's basically the same as the Disney version. So I think we should move on
Yep.
to to the song analysis and the themes.
Yay. So for the song analysis, I may have gone overboard, and I'm sorry in advance.
It's fine.
But so in terms of song and music, the movie and the musical are similar but not exactly the same. Because the musical basically took all of the songs of the movie, but they also added new songs, like for example the Tavern Song, Rhythm of the Tambourine, Rest and Recreation. So some of these new songs add more insight to certain characters or change elements of the plot that weren't in the movie. So for example, Rest and Recreation, it's the song belonging to Phoebus.
Yeah.
In that song, Phoebus talks about his time as a soldier and spending 4 years at the front. That's one of the lines. So it talks about him not wanting to go back to being a soldier. Now he's so glad that he's promoted to captain of the guards and that he wants to spend his time freely and just like flirt with people and all that. So from this song alone, we can see that Phoebus is still basically a womanizer, but we know that he's that way because he wants to forget his past. He doesn't, like the movie version doesn't really have much character outside of his love for Esmeralda. So
That's true.
in the song and the musical kind of gives him more of a character. And there's also a tavern song, which is about Esmeralda and Phoebus and other soldiers and gypsies. They're spending the night partying and stuff. So that's an event they added in the musical because they wanted Esmeralda and Phoebus to spend more time getting to know each other. But in that song, we also see Frollo watching them. And we see, like, diba in the book, Dylan said there's a descent for Frollo from, like, being a kind person into being crazy.
Yeah.
So we see
Yes.
that descent in the musical in this song.
Oh wow.
And then there's
Yeah.
also, like, songs that had lyrics that were changed or had, like, lyrics that were added. And then this gave more development to certain characters. Like, for example, there's this one song, Topsy Turvy. It's the one that happens during the Feast of Fools.
Ooh,
So-
I remember that.
Yeah, it's a really upbeat carnival song. So this song actually gets split into two in the musical. And it's interesting because in between that, there's the Rest and Recreation, and there's another song for Esmeralda called Rhythm of the Tambourine. So this kind of makes the event longer instead of just having that short scene in the movie where everyone's happy and all that. In this, we get to see everyone like talking about how they want to spend it, or in Esmeralda's case, she gets the spotlight for an entire song all to herself. And we can also see how the love interests, Phoebus, Quasimodo, and Frollo all react to her when they see her during the song. But there's another song which had an even bigger change in the lyrics. It's Bells of Notre Dame. It's the first song of the movie, but in the musical it's the second song. So the beginning of Bells of Notre Dame is changed because instead of talking about like setting the scene like it did and talking about the Notre Dame in the movie, in the musical it talks about Frollo. So obviously we know in the musical, instead of being a judge, he's an archdeacon, and his younger brother Jehan is also mentioned there. So like what Dylan said, Frollo's brother Jehan was, very irresponsible, and he eventually ran off with a gypsy, and they had a child whose name is Quasimodo. So this change in the song is notable because it completely changes Frollo's character from the movie. Like from the very beginning of the musical, we learn that Frollo is a completely different character. So instead of being cold-hearted, thinks he's always right, thinks he's pious and stuff, we see him, like, the musical sets him up as a devout religious priest who goes through conflicts between his faith and what he considers sinful. So at the beginning of the movie, him trying to be faithful while also trying to convince his brother to stop being sinful. His brother, in his eyes, was being sinful by partying instead of being religious. So by changing the lyrics of this song, the musical adds more depth to Frollo's character. So another thing about Quasimodo, because in the musical, he's deaf like he was in the book, right? He wasn't deaf in the movie, right?
Yeah, he wasn't.
You didn't know he died, right?
So the interesting about this is that because they made him deaf, they made him realistically deaf. So you know how when some deaf people talk, their words aren't,
Yeah.
they're not properly
Pronounced.
So Quasimodo, since he spends his time around bells for most of his life, his hearing is impaired. And so when he talks to other people, his words are like that of a deaf person's. Like they're very slurred and they're very raspy. But when he's alone, his voice becomes clear like it was in the movie. Like he sings clearly and properly. So his first solo out there is a perfect example of this because Quasimodo and Frollo have a conversation in the beginning of that song. And his voice is very raspy and, he's clearly deaf. But when Frollo leaves and he starts to sing, his voice becomes very clear and very loud. Like for the entire song, he sings properly and clearly, like how he would if he could hear.
Oh, so it actually shows na how he imagines, like, how he is singing when he's all alone, and like when
when he's alone and people aren't there, he doesn't see that he's deaf and ugly and deformed. He sees himself as normal. So there are also slight changes to this one lyric from one song that changes the themes of the musical and the movie. So this song is the one I mentioned earlier, Bells of Notre Dame, and it's one of the last lines of that song is who is the monster and who is the man. So in the movie, that line is supposed to have you think na, who is the monster and who is the man between Quasimodo and Frollo.
Yeah.
in the musical, they changed that line to what makes a monster and what makes a man. Because the theme of the movie is like your appearance doesn't really define like
Yeah.
what you are
Yeah.
inside. So we see that with like Quasimodo and Frollo. But in the musical, they change it because unlike the movie, musical Frollo isn't like straightforward evil.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's not like him looking normal that makes him evil, but it's what
Happened to
eventually
him.
he does. And towards the end, that's what makes him a monster.
Okay.
While Quasimodo,
Actually
like
makes sense.
Quasimodo wanting to be an is what makes him a man.
Yeah.
So other themes of the movie are like discrimination. So we see that against outcasts like Esmeralda, who's a gypsy, and Quasimodo, who's deformed. So, for example, there's the discrimination against the gypsies. Like for Esmeralda, she's falsely imprisoned because she's accused of witchcraft. And then the gypsies are being hunted down by Frollo's men, and their homes are burnt down. Yet, despite being discriminated, Esmeralda is still very hopeful. We see this in the song God Help the Outcasts, where she sings the line, I ask for nothing, I can get by, yet I know so many less lucky than I. Despite her situation, Esmeralda chooses to be selfless because she wants to remind herself that instead of being bitter about her situation, it's better for her to be kind. It's better for her to, at least be nice to other people instead of always being angry that she doesn't get the treatment that she thinks she deserves. And there's also discrimination against disabled, with Quasimodo, how he's treated by the people. There's Frollo telling him, you can't go outside, you're ugly, people will hate you. Yet, Esmeralda treating him kindly reminds us not to judge people by appearance. You judge people by their character, not by their appearance. But there's also some religious stuff, because since Frollo's a priest instead of a judge, there you can see religious conflict where he's like, oh, I want to be religious and stuff, but I'm having these thoughts towards Esmeralda, or my brother isn't pure like he's supposed to be, and how he deals with that conflict. So for his brother, he chooses to ignore the problem and just continue to be holy and pure, unlike his brother. But it's also hypocritical because Frollo is like, I want to be holy and all that. But he's also sinful because he
True.
lusts for Esmeralda. And he gets jealous of Phoebus, and he gets angry at Quasimodo for helping her. And it's not also Frollo's sin, but it's also the sin of the people. Because you know how Catholics are like, oh, we're supposed to be kind to others, yet the people of Paris are mean to Quasimodo for being ugly to us. So, so there are those themes of religious conflict, the temptations of sin, of being a hypocrite in your own religion. So there's also the concept of justice in the musical, because in the musical you can see Frollo being like, I don't want Esmeralda to go around because she's not she's doing witchcraft. She's seducing people. She's seducing me. So she should not be out in the open and all that. But if you think about it, that's what Frollo wants. It's not what's actually right. So it's actually an injustice, but it's done by Frollo for the sake of justice. So there's a lot of injustices against people like Esmeralda and Quasimodo done in the name of justice. Well, Esmeralda, who is discriminated against, who is thought to not do justice, she's continuously fighting for what she believes is right. So we see that when she sings God help the outcast, or when she's helping Quasimodo and befriending Quasimodo, even though people are telling her not to because he's ugly, he's deformed. Despite having injustices committed against her, she still sees what is true justice and still fights for it. But the sad thing is that despite being such a just character, she eventually dies because she stands up for herself and she stands up for Quasimodo, but she dies at the end of the musical. And it shows that despite all these people who are so just and kind, there are always people who suffer as a result of injustices by the people in power, like Frollo. We need to do something about that. We can't just let the people in power just abuse the other people, abuse those who are below them. So yeah.
Wow, that's actually very, very intricate, and it's actually very unique, like the theme and what the film and the other versions wanted to talk about. It's not like the usual, Disney movie with that is about love. And,
And Prince.
this one is about something even more deeper. It's more mature in a way. It's about justice and
Yeah.
like, discrimination, which is actually a very huge topic, especially today.
Very deep.
So
There's actually
Yeah.
an interview with the people who made the musical, the Paper Mill musical that we're talking about. They wanted to combine the themes of the movie and the book because they didn't want everything to be straightforward like it was in the movie. Like diba, Frollo was just like completely evil.
Yeah.
Well, they wanted in the musical now when you leave, they want you to think about it because it's not like morally straightforward. It's morally ambiguous. Like Frollo, despite being so crazy in the end, he's still kind to Quasimodo. He still takes Quasimodo in, so he can't be like completely evil. He still
Yeah.
still has his good qualities.
It's like gonna leave you thinking, is he really a bad guy or is it just a result of the circumstances na binigay sa kanya or something, right? So yeah, now that we talked about everything that we need to talk about, I would like to ask everyone a question. Among everything, like the novel and the film and the musical, what would be your favorite scene and why?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, just one, just one. Like it could be a favorite scene because you hate it so much, or it could be a favorite scene because you love it so much. Either way is fine.
Oh, for me, it would be when Claude Frollo sings Hellfire, because we can see that he's going to the point of no return. Like you see, there's light, diba? There's a blue light. I think that represents heaven. Then eventually you can see it distort and turn into fiery red.
Wow.
So it symbolizes na like Frollo has gone into fire. Like he's already damned by that
Actually, so
film.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
Mine is, when Quasimodo pushed Frollo, like, I was able to see the passion, like, how willing.
Like finally, you mother.
Parang, he was so excited to break free. Like, he saw him break free from everything that happened. From break free from the church. When I think when he realized I've been scammed by Frollo all this time. I think that moment made a realization that I've been scammed. I've been doing it wrong all this time.
Yeah.
I've been trusting him. Like, it also combined with his passion for like, like how like he upsets now. Esmeralda didn't like her. Like he still didn't want to see her hurt.
Yeah.
He wasn't affected so much. Like kahit na he accepted that they can do things.
Yeah.
That's a strength of a person.
Me naman, I think my favorite scene of the movie would be the from the Disney films is the ending where finally Quasimodo was finally appreciated by everybody. Yeah, that actually shows na parang it justifies and it concludes what the story wanted to tell us from the very beginning. And it's not your looks or appearances that defines who you are as a person. It's actually what you're capable of and what's inside of you. So yeah, that was my favorite one because of course we all kind of relate to it because somehow we feel down for like we cannot do this, we cannot do that. But yeah, this reminds us that it's not necessarily it's not it's okay that basta but I was just trying to say that it's the scene that actually touched my heart the most.
I actually agree with Mark that it's the last part. It's a happy ending. It's a happy ending. But at the same time, parang, it's quite sad na parang Quasimodo had to do these things before he gets accepted in society when in fact dapat even if ganito kayo, even if you have this physical ganito yung itsura mo, diba, dapat you're already accepted in society.
True.
Parang ganun, diba? So yeah, it's a happy ending na finally he's been accepted, but at the same time, does it really
It's a
have
bit
to
sad.
be like Quasimodo do these things before he gets accepted or dapat he gets accepted
Right
for who
away,
he is even right away na, ayun.
like parang mas mahirap yung pinagdaanan niya. For example, if you were a person with good looks, parang
Diba?
the society accepts you right away. Like him, like, you have to do this, you have to do this, you're accepted. How about you, Ate Angel? Last.
Well, my favorite's actually the ending of the musical. It's like, like the movie is happy and the musical's sad because I like Esmeralda dies. Bro, there's like this part towards the end now where they're singing the last song. And the actor for Quasimodo takes off like the hunchback, the things that make him look like Quasimodo. And he stands with the rest of the cast. And when you look at them, he looks the same as the rest of the cast. And it's a really nice scene because, like, despite looking different, despite standing out from everyone else, like, inside, Quasimodo's just the same with the rest of us naman. Now we're all equal, like, inside. We're, like, we shouldn't, judge other people because of what they look like, because when we all think about it, we all are really the same inside,
Yeah, that should make sense. So yeah, do you guys have anything to add? Anything you want to say before we end this podcast? Lana. Okay, everyone say
I just
goodbye.
have a fun fact.
Okay, sure.
Alpha out.
So the reason why Hugo wrote Hunchback of Notre Dame is because the Notre Dame was gonna be condemned and destroyed, but he wrote it about like Notre Dame being very beautiful and all that.
Mhm.
So when people came to Paris, they wanted to see the Notre Dame. They were like, "Why is it so ugly when the book is so beautiful in the book?" So because of Hugo, they decided to fix the Notre Dame and renovate it. And that's
Wow.
why the Notre Dame still exists.
Wow, it's actually so huge. Wow. Thank you, Ate Angel.
Thank you, Angel.
So everyone, I invite you to say goodbye to our audience one by one.
Goodbye, guys.
Okay, ladies
Hi,
and
thanks for
gentlemen.
listening.
Yeah, to all the boys and the girls listening and being with us until the end, this is Podcast 101 signing off. Goodbye and thank you.